يخصتيني تقد يوهان كيشخان يخطيتي يدت يا أخاك يخيدي دو إني جخاني كوتية أيا أكتشاك يا تلك دو إيتو دشي دو إي أوشتو أدكاتو تشاك يا لingít kashxeedí أيا ويكوتية ييل kashxeedí يا أوه دو إني جخاني أخيتو دشي يا Lingít kashxeedí تين يا أدكاتشيتيا نا كوي يدو ساقو داسك شوي قوة نا كوي ييل تشاك قوش كيد داساتس هيخج تقيدي هيل hoots like قاد لوك chas تيل إق داساتسو يسكوكي يوهان كيد نا كوي يدو ساقو أدكاتشيتيا Lingít kashxeedí يا أوه نا كوي قلي ستين نقاي سكو قدخسوي ويقوء غداق ناقصة حستي أتلينا قدستي أدكاتشيتيا يا يدا تسجيك جينكي قوء حس أو سكو أدكاتشاك ويكوتية ياك سيت تيدو ساقو قلتشيشا قيدي سآخير تويك يخستيني قوكسا يوهان إجخان كي خديتي
kinship kashxeedí ʻáaḥw سامحتني خديتي
اوكي الشيش يوهان قوة وصصيتي
يك
الشيش
gagan away
يايكي أودغان ياخت أختو يكي قوة خطوة دخل كي جنغاو كي خطكت يايكي وقس
How did you do that? I don't know. I would.
نيش يا يتي أخايا
Renee, you're muted. I don't read lips in English, let alone sing it. Sorry.
I thought you were being very, very thoughtful. Like just really, okay. Kashxeedí. What other things was I talking about?
I heard a number of clan crests.
Yeah.
Yéil, kashxeedí, Gooch, kashxeedí.
We're talking about your uncle and the totem pole he's been carving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's on it? Anybody know?
Yéil, kashxeedí.
Yeah, or what? Okay. Not too many people who do that kind of work. So, anything else?
I heard ʼáaḥw, so there are many people there.
Yeah, well, I think I was saying that might have been when I was talking about the ʼáaḥw. That's the only time I think I've ever really heard a term that I think would specifically refer to clan crests. So Na is a nation or a group or a clan. Kootéeyaa is a marker. So ʼáaḥw is clan crest. I got it from Cyril George. ʼáaḥw. And then I think I was saying, I just started naming a couple, and then I said, maybe before I said ʼáaḥw, many of them exist, or there are many of them. Okay.
Did you say something like people belong to them or they belong to people?
Yeah, like ʼáaḥw, or when you see them, Yisatini, Yisaku, Udachsa, you know where the people are from. Kudatankahídi, Hasati, and what clan they are. Okay. Good listeners. Do you folks have any language questions that you've been thinking about?
So, question that occurred to me as I was driving home today. If we were going to talk about like the light is coming back, would that also be like a kootéeyaa?
Have we looked at the Tipitap stuff here? To get Tipitap done.
That doesn't sound familiar.
What's the Tipitap? Anybody know what the Tipitap is? Okay, let me find.
Thank.
Okay. I think it was a cool idea. But I just think it didn't really work out. So I found the one I'm looking for. So let's talk about the Tipitap project. Came about with really good intentions. But basically Tipitap was an app that you could create a book, and basically like a children's book, usually for early readers, and you can tap words and it will say individual words for you. And it's a really neat idea for Lingít texts. Like there should be kootéeyaa, and I think we should start working on like texts that do that, like not like full giant books, but like the shorter stories that we're making. And then I think there should be a whole sentence button somewhere, like somewhere to somehow to do the whole sentence. That way you can look at individual pieces. And so the reason why this project kind of didn't succeed, I think, was because a lot of these were just very English early reader concepts that we were trying to directly translate. And so it's like the cute bunny is, it's just like it works very well in English, and it doesn't work very well in Lingít, because a lot of English, it's like very specific pattern development and other things that work, right? And so You get like llama, llama, red pajama, right? So there's these certain patterns that these books tend to follow, and rhyme schemes and just silly things like a silly bunny is going to a party and stuff. And so it is just like, it was very difficult to translate some of this stuff. And the project just kind of sunk. But there are neat things that came out of it. So here are some examples. So this was book 13. It's called ʼáaḥw. So ʼáaḥw really means just seasons. It doesn't mean change of season. It just means it continues to arrive. The time continues to arrive. And so it's pretty cool because like and I'll put this whole thing up. I'll just make a PDF of this and put this up because I don't think the project is it's really dead. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't good stuff that came out of it. There's one about puppies that had some stuff that I hadn't seen before. But for this one, every year there are 4 seasons. Tléixʼ, Yéil, they are called Tléixʼ, and Yéil, which in order are winter, spring, summer, fall. They always come in the same order: winter, spring, summer, fall. Or sorry. So now we get a complicated verb. So in the winter, it is always cold. We're going to build a snowman with snow. It always gets warmer in the spring. Flowers always bloom and animals always emerge and play, right? It is hot in the summer. Let's go to the beach. And in the fall, trees shed their leaves. The leaves always fall off, and they're pretty. Sometimes it's always cold in the fall. So thinking about like longer days and seasonal change, like I thought of this, and then we're going to look at one other thing. We won't look at this whole thing. We'll just look at a little chunk of it, because this is the way I think when you talk about it's more light, when you talk about more light in Lingít, and I think the translation point that we started from here was the days are getting longer. So let me find. So this is another project where you could find some things like that. So here, they always sleep through the winter. Who do you think we're talking about?
S'eek.
Bears. Quotes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yagidetqa getak tleid yeya kanasleini yayagi yayina yeta. So there's a lot there. The snow is beginning to melt, and the day, so yayagi yayina yeta. So yayina yeta means the time span is getting longer. So you could say, and you could say way yagi ya yinayet. But in this case, you say ya yagi ya yinayet. These days are getting longer. It's basically what you're saying. Which is, well, let's see. I think it's a good idea. Go look up verbs when we see them. So the verb root here is yat. And let's just go see what that verb root's about, because there's some cool things here. So we have yat. So for something to be long, so you'd say yayat, it's long. But then for this one it's two things. It's for something to be, well, I would say this one is tall. Yayat. And then yiyat, it's a long time. So this one has a noun built onto it that we call a thematic prefix. This one means the verb is talking about time. It is not very common. I don't know if I've seen it outside of this particular verb. And then to be that long of a stick-like object, and for something to be that long. There is an opposite for this one, which is oh, maybe okay, we won't do that one. We won't do short. Okay. Other thoughts or questions?
I have two about relational endings.
Mhm.
Well, they're sort of the same thing, actually. One of them was like, we were talking about how when you add a relational ending on an unvoiced consonant, it changes to its voiced sibling.
Yes.
But like, if t goes to d, but you have a pinch on there, what happens? Is it
There's
consistent?
no voiced equivalent of it. You cannot do a pinched D.
Okay.
So it just stays.
Okay. Because like, I've lost my example, but I thought I found one where like, I think it was a pinched A that went to like a plain G or something like that.
Yeah.
And some of them like I found one just now that I was looking for the one I lost. It was a pinch T that just stayed a pinch T.
Yeah, so all of those ejectives should just stay the same.
Okay.
There is no, because you cannot make a voiced, you can't hold your breath. I don't think, because the pinch to the ejective means you close your lungs. I don't think you can close your lungs and activate your vocal cords. And I mean, at least not easily. Right? Like, I think you're just gonna make a very weird noise, or a very, very strained noise, at least. And so it's like the body just can't do that. So if you have like a CH goes to, you know, a J, right? Cheech, ach, chi, j. But if something ended with CH apostrophe, there's no voice version of that. So it just stays all the time.
Okay. And the other one, I came across the phrase kashxeedí. And I was wondering why that relational suffix pops up there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's okay. That's a really good question. I have too many windows open? Okay, if you have too many tabs open, you're a tabby cat. But what are you if you have too many windows open? Is there a term for that? Okay.
As a millennial, you're a millennial then.
Oh, okay. So I get young graded, I guess I would say, not downgraded, just young graded.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have nuts, which is as a good reminder, it is hard. I think you might catch yourself sometimes going nuts instead of nuts. Because once you do this as an English speaker going to Lingít, I think your body's like, okay, everything gets the apostrophe now. And I think it's just a sub. I used to do it all the time. I'm like tléixʼ, tléixʼ, nuts, and it would come out like that, right? So it should go tléixʼ, tléixʼ, nuts. But that getting that K to go soft is important. So when you say, this is something you'll see quite a bit. So you'll see tléixʼ, and then you'll see tléixʼ, which sometimes you'll see dach. And how do these sort of work? Tléixʼ, tléixʼ. There's kind of two general interpretations for these, I think.
One thing, two things.
Yeah, so one of them, two of them, right? And it could also be the first one, the second one, but just in terms of counting, not in terms of like the first Chevy truck to come out or whatever the thing is, right? So you're not talking about like the original. You're just saying like 1, 2, 3, first one, second one, third one. So this works for chapters. These work for grade levels and stuff like that. But if you say nuts, like even like, I guess let's just do this. Everybody say nuts.
That's
Nusk, nusk,
Now say nutski.
nusky,
that's no,
Yeah.
that's
Go back to nutsk.
nus,
Nusk.
nus,
Now say nutski.
that's
Which one of those is easier to say?
Nasky
nusky,
So the only reason this is there is to make it easier to say. So this gets tricky because this looks exactly like a suffix, but it's really what we call a peg vowel. A peg vowel exists sometimes just to get us to the next sound, right? It just makes it easier to get to the next sound. There are other examples. So for example, I think this is a complicated verb. Let me double check it. I'll just trust myself. Okay. Does anybody know what this verb might be saying?
I don't recognize the root, but almost all the other pieces I do.
Do we know this as a noun?
I can't see it.
Oops. Thank you.
It seems familiar, but I will admit I am not keeping up on my flashcards from beginning Lingít. So
I don't know if
With-
this,
But it sounds a little bit like forget.
oh yeah, it does look kind of similar, right? But it's ʻáaḳw as opposed to ʻáaḳw. Qad, qaduk, qatid. Eight hinidach, hasya kanduk. Ya yis hini yich nadayihi. Chagud kautut tseko a. You has to a sa kwega. Yes. Hasnas teach. Has to kahaku, has to tawasaku, hasa jiwanaki. Jiwanaki. Shukwa. Has is ʻáaḳw. So what are these three things? Mhm.
They're various salmon.
Yeah. But there's only, this is only 3 of 5. And do you know what I just said about that? Eight hinidach, yis hinide, chakut, kaudut, they set o a.
When they change, when they come into fresh water.
That is absolutely correct. So these 3 salmon change their color when they go to fresh water in the fall, before they lay their eggs. The name for the discolored fish like that is ʻáaḳw. So now there's a verb, has is ʻáaḳw. What might that be talking about?
changing colors.
They always
For
change
a
colors.
fish, specifically a salmon, to change its color in the fresh water. We got a verb for that. And so,
Of course they do.
yes, there was only an object here. There was no subject. And I would say, would ze up. It's got all kinds of fun sounds in it. So would ze up. When we change this from a plus I classifier to this, which is saying they do this regularly, right? That's what this is saying. This letter I pops up for this reason. If the prefix has a consonant, like this letter S, it must have a vowel. A prefix cannot only have a consonant. So the only reason this exists is to hold up this one right there. So this is called the peg vowel in Lingít. It's not that common, but you'll see it from time to time. And then other times you'll get just sort of general vocalization. So you could say this. So S'eek. What is that?
Grandparent.
Grandparents.
My grandparent.
Our grandparent. This is singular. This is only talking about one, even though it's, we gotta be related now, or maybe that's just we refer to them as our grandparent, which happens a lot in Lingít. You can't adopt people into these kinship roles. But if how would I pluralize this to say our grandparents? Big kinship question.
But Lingít doesn't really pluralize, does it?
You can pluralize kinship terms, which we'll talk about right now. There's a song that goes, ha blanky blank you a tonguey hey 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 hey. It's in there. Okay, if you're opening a speech sometimes, you might say, ach, ish, blank. Ach, sunny, or ach, we'll do ach, ot, blank. And so there's a word right here that pluralizes a kinship term.
And it's not
Huh?
Haas, right?
It is hus.
Oh, okay.
Believe in yourself.
Why is it after?
It's because
Because if it was before, it would be their grandparent and not
Yeah,
our
yeah,
grandparent.
like ach has ish, like it's too confusing. So you have to separate it from the pronouns. And it's high tone, it's not a pronoun, it's a kinship pluralizer. That just has a homonym that is a pronoun. Whatever. Okay. So, but if I say hashish kuhas, this becomes a U. It becomes vocalized. So there are times in Lingít as well where it's like you got to put a vowel there to get us to the next sound, because Lingít consonants are tricky. Okay. Fun questions. Good job, everybody.
I have one more.
Okay.
If you wanted to say like, pass me the second book from the shelf or whatever. Hagudecha.
Okay. So hagu would be okay.
Like,
First of all, when we had our second child, I was really lobbying for the name Decha or Dacha, which instantly got shot down because someone said, "What does that mean?" I said, "The second one," and they said, "No." It's like, okay, fine. That would have been a lifelong thing.
I need more time.
Hande. Sorry, I got my wires crossed.
Is come here. Hande or hade is, I would say, gimme. So we don't say that very often. We say that in very, like if I know someone really well, maybe. But, or if I'm in S'eek and they call my name, it is, you are allowed to say, gimme, 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 right? That's why you say hard day really loud. But usually you'll say ach, jeet, handling verb, way, now. So here's your pattern. You have 16 or so different verbs to choose from. You cannot get away from this. But we start with ach, jeet, t. Hand me the solid object or the abstract item. We'll just leave it at that because these are motion verbs, so there's a lot to it. Here's jeet. We just talked about this the other day, right? The into the possession, right? Ach, jeet, t. So I would say ach, jeet, t. Way, dach, I would say dach. Hand me the second book. But sometimes that's not, that could mean multiple things. Like, yeah, that could be the second one over. It could be book 2, Harry Potter and the second thing that he did. So.
Tisha.
Anything else?
That also mean hand me 2 books. Hand me 2 of them.
Ach, jeet. Yeah, now it's got to pluralize. The motion, well, we won't pluralize the handling verb for now, but it would. Ach, jeet, te, de. That's how you do it. Hand me 2 books. So I could say ach, jeet, sanu. Jin ka douche, get. So sanu. Well, you should be able to figure this one out. How would this translate?
Hand me
10
And-
kittens.
Hand me 10 kittens. Right, which that's
Your hands are going to be very full.
right.
Chaos, just complete chaos.
Exactly what I'm thinking.
Not only is the grammar difficult, but this task is impossible. Okay. So sanu is a living object, which is usually babies and just little baby animals. Because I mean, I guess you could say hand me the dog, but usually the dog can just get on over it.
Once it's twice.
Okay.
Quit on yourself.
Is there a way when you're looking at stems? I've noticed a few as I'm going through and doing my translations that have 2-syllable stems instead of 1-syllable stem.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to tell other than frantically trying to find look up every single thing possible in the dictionary before you back up a step that it's actually 2 syllables?
Okay. First, you hand me 10 kittens. I'm just kidding.
How about 1 cat? I have that in my lap.
So let's look at how Kudatankahídi, which the thing that we just talked about. So we could do a search for, I think that's under handling. And then that gets us to this big list of handling verbs, right? So we'll see ʼáaxw all the way down. Then we'll see all these verbs in a command form. Ti, sati, kati, kasati, jiti, jikati, jiksati, tun, sa'in, katan, satan, kasatan, sanu, sata, ʼáaḳw, llana, quach, sane, lla'at, kajel, kashxeedí. All of these are short. All of these stems are short. And there is a reason for that. So we can learn this list, and we should learn a bunch of these. I think you should know sa'in, because people ask for cups full of coffee and water and tea. You should know ti, because people ask for just general objects and abstract things. Hajitawati hayukatangi, or hajitwaduwati. Our language was given to us. So also going way down here to chapter 18 is this chapter called verb modes. If you're interested in reading about verb modes, this book could also be called Getting You Ready for Verbs, right? So the goal is to like try and explain everything in Lingít roughly and quickly, and then get us to talking about verbs. So when it talks about so here's a perfective, this gives you a very boilerplate type of thing. Like it is not a very usable thing until you learn how to do this, but it becomes a reference guide because it says, what does the classifier need to be? Plus I. What is the stem going to be? It is absolutely predictable. And it's based upon stem variation is all about like the vowel. Short, high, long, low. Those are your 3 options. It's a combination of the conjugation type, 0, na, ga, qa, the verb mode, perfective, and the stem variation itself, which is marked. And so there's a little chart at the end of this called stem variation, where you can look it up. So if you go down to, this is called imperative. So this is also a command. And if you look, zeros will be short and high or long and high. I would say most of them are short and high. If you're going to start by guessing, start there. All opens, they just tend to be short and high, I think. And then when you get to here, when you have closed, So this is open, ends with a vowel. This is closed, ends with a consonant. Go to imperative. Zeros are short and high. Everything else is long and low. That's going to be a common pattern for us. So you would say, well, you say hag, but the end falls off. Well, that's not a good example. So ʼáaxw te, right? Hand me ʼáaxw te wedana. Give me the money. ʼáaxw te wedana. And then I don't want to use. Well, we'll see examples, but basically, I think the perfective, well, the future is, I think, when you talk about stem variation, the future is the easiest thing to deal with. The positive is always long and high. The negative is always long and low. For a perfective positive, 0 opens are long and high, closed, or everything else is long and low. For a closed one, zeros are short and high, everything else is long and low. But then you have, if you see a high tone mark in the verb theme, it will not go low. So that's a lot, but it's right there. We'll go over it sort of one at a time. It is predictable, but I think it's maybe the most complicated part of the verb. I'm not too sure.
And the positive and negative imperfective aren't on here because they are all over the place.
They
Right.
yeah, there's like 20. I think it's unpredictable. So when you have an imperfective, you just have to remember what that stem does.
I don't think I did a good job of asking my question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding some that it's not just there's an ending, it's, you know, because I was trying to find the last syllable and look it up in the verb dictionary, and it wasn't there. And then so then I had to go back another syllable, and that's when it showed up. And I'm trying to find an example, and of course, I'll find one over break maybe.
Okay, we'll come back to it. Sheesh. Okay, so let's do a few of these. So back to these, back to wait, that's not the one I want. Back to these. Okay. So direction and location. We're just going to go over a whole bunch of these, and then we'll take our break, and then we'll do something different. Okay, so this is more, it's list building. It is part of language learning, is to just sort of learn what these things are. So again, this long line in the front, what does that mean?
It's relational based. It has to have a noun in front of it.
Yes, it needs a noun in front of it. But with a high tone, na, does anybody know what that one is?
North?
It's the upper, well, there is na, a low tone, which is also na key. But this one with the high tone is the upper body or draped over something. But it's usually referring to an upper body, which is why you say na ati. The things, because clothing, like especially go back pre-contact times, I think Lingít just like put a long shirt on and called it good. And like probably didn't wear shoes. And I don't know. Inland Lingít, I think, had to wear shoes. Are you kidding me? Okay.
Even coastal, it's been awfully cold outside lately. I don't know how you would go outside barefoot.
There are quite a few documented encounters of like people who first saw Lingít people, and they're like, don't wear any shoes. And I am so glad we wear shoes because I would just stay inside because like I don't know, but I guess your feet just get tough. I don't know.
We would learn the word for frostbite very quickly. At least I would.
There's actually a really well-known man here in Juneau who walks around constantly barefoot.
Mhm.
And an article about him, and he does it in the winter. He goes hiking in the winter. He does snow sports, and he shows that you basically get used to it. It's a great article if you want to read about it. He's
I saw it recently.
There was a
yeah, and
person
so he walks around all the time. I see him at least like 3 or 4 times a week downtown.
Fairbanks too. There was someone who he never wore shoes, and I guess
It's
had
the same guy. He moved.
What? How
Yeah,
amazing.
because he was going to UAF and then he moved down here. Same guy. So he walked around in Fairbanks too at like -45.
We should
Mm.
call him kashxeedí, barefoot, shoeless. Okay, na, nia, yina.
That related to a place, like it's part of like Huna.
Yes, so hunia.
Shelter from it.
Hunia means the shelter, the lee of the north wind. Is that how we translate that? Sounds so fancy. Yeah, so this one is a little bit complicated. So it does mean shielding or protecting. It could mean the next one over, and it could mean in that general area of or in the direction of. It's got like, you just keep an eye out for it. You're gonna see this one all over the place once you start looking. It's in places like hunia, which becomes huna, which becomes huna. It's in sanya, henya, nanya ai. It's in a number of different things. You'll just find it, right? And it used to be this nya thing, and now it's transitioned. So you have nia or yina, most common. Okay. Sha.
Is that head?
Head
Yep.
or on top.
Or top. Yep. Shaki.
Above the head. Or like,
But on the head, yes, on top.
Like Shaki.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And Sha Shaki, the mountaintop. Sh.
Is that the end of something? Like the end of the trail? They should.
Shuka.
Under.
That would be.
No.
Don't stop.
The edge of something? Like the edge of a table or something?
Our ancestors, isn't it? Hashuka.
Ashuka is our ancestors, but
What comes before?
there's a literal definition of that as well. I mean, that is what it means. But you could say Hashukayeti we Jinkatu Shetki.
our
Now
components, our parts.
that would be Shagun.
Mm.
You could also say Yak Shuka Chich Chosatin.
Our origin?
I could say Akshuka Yeyeti we Kashuktake, I guess. It is in front of or ahead of. So this one is pretty wild, right? So like you could, like if I said Yakshuka Chich Chosatin. What do you think I'm saying?
There's a cheech ahead of our boat canoe.
Yeah, Chosatin. I see a porpoise in front of our canoe or boat. Yeah. So then I said Hashuka Jinkat Dushet Kiyeti. Well, I guess I should say Yahasyati. Hashuka. So that's complicated, right? Because you want to think of ancestors, which it is. Hashuka, Hashagun. But if I just said it in a sentence, Hashuka, Jinkat Dushetki Yehasyati. Or I could say Hashuka Yehasyati, Jinkat Dushetki.
There are 10 kittens ahead of us.
There are 10 kittens ahead of us. This could also be used as a time reference. ʼáaxw hat Lingít. ʼáaxw hat Lingít. So if that's ahead of a'axw hat Lingít.
I arrived before you.
Close.
You arrived before
Say,
me.
S'eek hat good. Yes. You arrived before me. I arrived. Okay. Talk. I talked about kittens too much. Now I hear a cat.
It's mine.
My cat is definitely talking.
Talk.
I feel like we just went over that one. Now I can't remember it.
Okay.
Something about board.
Well, that would be ta. So yes.
Mm.
So talk
Is
is the bottom of a cavity or in the water deep enough to submerge. Here's another one that has, some of these just have like a few different uses, and then you'll start to sometimes see them around. So talk, like kashxeedí. When you say talk, it's in the water. Sometimes submerged, sometimes just means the water is deep enough to submerge. If there's like these two sort of, there's like a ravine, like there's this kind of two cliff walls and something's down there. Kashxeedí. It's down, it's at the bottom of this cavity. It's a really interesting concept in Lingít that we have a specific term for it. And what's also really interesting is your eye has one, and so does the fire. Because you'd say, ʼáaḥw they looked at my pupil. And ʼáaḥw, I think, means it has a cavity, which is bonkers for me. Okay. Tayi.
Surface of the water? No, this is the other one.
Someone said
Um,
earlier. Tayi. Nadak tayi we cannot talk. We did this.
Physical activity will engage your brain. You have to-
under.
Where? Beneath, underneath. So it has to be underneath the thing, not below. We're gonna get to that one. Underneath. Okay. Oh, we got some more. We're almost, if you think about the alphabet, we're almost to the end of this section. 2-1. Ach 2-1 yeyeti wegucha.
like beside at hand.
Yeah, oh wow. Beside or next to. Very similar to khan. Very, very similar. Tuq.
That's your butt, isn't it?
Yes.
Your lower back, something?
It's your butt, it's the rump of something, but it's also the bottom. Like, so this has a tuq.
I can't find something. Asking for help rather than not
These
doing it at
two
all.
are very similar sounding. A'aḥw. So the name, there's a place called ʻáaḳw. Do we know what that translates to and where it is?
Oh,
What is it? Where is it? ʻáaḳw.
it, talk, sit.
Yes. But just dealing with ʻáaḳw for right now. What does that translate to and where is it?
It's the little lake.
A little lake.
Kudatankahídi.
Yes.
Or
So it's often called ʻáaḳw Lake. It's in the Juneau area. Now there is a glacier that you could see from ʻáaḳw called ʻáaḥ-sit. That word is in that name. It's not called Mendenhall. But where is that glacier in relation to that little lake?
inland
above it.
from.
Inland, yeah.
Yes,
Upstream.
it is back inland from. So Tlingit has some wild, like the ocean is very important to us. It's so important that we'll say, this is on the mountainside of it. So it could be behind. Sometimes this was translated as behind, but it means inland from. ʻáaḳw, ʻáaḳw, ʻáaḳw is the name of the entire area that is, if you looked it up on a map, it'd probably say Mendenhall Valley. Taking that name back though. So, very similar looking, but now the vowel is low and the K is underlined. Talk to talk.
Is it next to,
It is
beside?
side. Yes. So now we have to one, khan, ah. It does get a little complicated. I think khan also has to do with visiting and being accompanying. So it's often associated with living things, but not all the time. To one means just generally sort of here, and then talk is specifically right next to. And a really good example, I think, is there was a place, I think it was called Hit Plain. I could be wrong. And next to it was a clan house. And next to that, they built a house called ʻáaḳw Hit. And ʻáaḳw Hit contracted to ʻáaḳw Hit Tan. Then it contracted to ʻáaḳw Tan. So it is in that clan name. So now we're still in the T apostrophes with a K ending, just to be fun. S'eek,
Behind.
behind. The ones with the K and the apostrophe means if you have no suffix, you should say that K. If you add a suffix, that K probably goes away.
K and apostrophe?
Okay, sorry. This, if you put a suffix on here, it usually goes away. If you say it on its own, it's usually there.
Okay. K in parentheses.
Yes, in parentheses. Did I say apostrophe? Oops.
Either that or my brain just short-circuited.
No, I probably said it. I do that stuff all the time. Okay. 3 more, and we'll take our break. Ika. It is in the name she. Ika.
Out to sea.
Kind of, but a little different. So this one,
On the edge of, oh,
It's on, okay, this is actually, it could be, okay, this could be the edge of town. Yes. So it could be the
So you,
outskirts, I guess you could say, is an equivalent in English. But it also means out on the ocean in front of it. So,
so you're saying this is in the name Shitka,
Mhm. She
Which-
is the name of an island.
right?
She, on the ocean side of the island called She, because there's a whole bunch of these little teeny islands that are there. That's what it's named for. One.
Is that the edge as well?
I don't think so. You're probably, there's a different word that you might be thinking of. It is. Oh, it is the edge. What was I thinking? Oh, I was thinking of what? Sorry. Yes, it is the edge of. Good job.
What's the difference then between that and what we just talked about in Shitka?
So Ika would be like on the outskirts of town. Ika would be on the ocean side in the water. And then one would be the edge of.
So like, could you say like Jin one?
Yeah, it's Jiwon.
Hmm.
So Jiwon is, so that's why I want to call Jiwon Tsuwa would be a karate chop. I think.
So it's like the edge of an object.
Yes. Yeah, so it's not like the edge of this river or the edge of the table, the edge of a cliff. It's more like a kind of a, I guess that hand example is pretty good. Wakshi.
I would think walk has something to do with the eye, but I doubt if that's correct.
It is correct. Believe in yourself.
In public.
That's pretty good. It's related to that in some ways. If you say ka wakshi,
Oh, this is like in sight, visible. No. Yes?
visible before the eyes. So like, and it's just, you say ka wakshi, like, if that's, you might bawl your kids out and sing it because you say ka wakshi, you're doing this where people can see you. If they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, where people could see them. But you could say right? And so we use this for Achtuasaku yiwak shiyide yekakwasane ya achkashuk khawaki. That's how you say I would like to screen share. Achtuasaku yiwak shiyi. Well, let's just say yiwak shiyi yekakwasane achkashuk khawaki. Well, let's look at it. It's long. We better write it out. Achtuasaku yiwakshiyide yekakwasane achkashuk khawaki. It's kind of long. I feel like we're probably gonna end up with like kashuk khawaki. We're going to end up with some very short version of it, maybe. How does this, what does achtuasagu translate to?
Want or need.
I want it. I like it. Kashxeedí.
To your eyes.
Yes.
To
Like
your eyes.
and two in front of your eye. Y'all's eyes. Do we know what kashxeedí is? We just sort of like drop this for now.
It's a future thing.
It's a future with the
May is to do. I want to put something.
yes. So kashxeedí is the I'm a gonna. So when we put this back, I want to, before y'all's eyes, do it or bring the plural objects. In this case, it is do it. Ach kashuk khawaqi.
Is that your screen?
Yeah, so my, what's kashuk?
Electric.
Electric. Khawaqi.
Window.
Yes. I want to put my electric window before y'all's eyes. It's very literal. Oh, you can. Okay. Let's take a break. Nate gave some Zoom phrases that are great. We'll probably look at those when we come back. And then we'll do something a little different, a little bit more putting things together. Okay. Take 5. Sheesh. Okay. So I thought we'd do a little bit of whole language stuff, coming back to Yéil Kudatankahídi. So this was the first sentence of the book that we did. So this is the next book that's coming out through the Hayatki. Is it Lingít Hayatki? Yes. So Kuhanti came out. The next one is Yéil Kudatankahídi. The first sentence we already translated, although it's been probably a week or more. How did that translate? Do we remember?
A long time ago, the whole world was covered with salt water.
Yes, long time ago, it is long ago. All the world on being water, that is salt water, it was. Long time ago, all the water on the world was salt water. Who can read this one to us? Read the whole thing.
Ya Yéil kwa awli yech ya a'aḥw sani ka ya chat hine ka Canada ye hin tléixʼ.
Sheesh. Ya Yéil kwa awsayech ya a'aḥw ka yachat hini ka Canadayin penk. So, do we have any verbs?
Yeah.
That is the single verb in this whole sentence. So what? So ya Yéil, what do we have there?
This raven.
It's raven. Capital Y, that is the trickster raven. Kwa.
Is that maybe?
It's a contracted version of Kootéeyaa. And kootéeyaa does a bunch of things. So kootéeyaa or kwa. Anybody know what kinds of things that does?
However,
However,
The thought transition linking word.
yes, it sort of like highlights what we're talking about, right? So it has a bunch of different uses. Like, for example, if you ask me a question, if you said, what's that it do a sock? I said, Khone you had do a sock. What ʼáaḥw? What did I just say to you? The last part.
And you.
And you, right? So it can push a question right back to somebody, right? It could also just sort of shift who we're talking about. Kashxeedí chayu, right? Which I'm not. I'm getting bossy and ordering our drinks, so, but that could work for that as well. So it signals a subject shift, says who we're talking about. In this case, we might say the raven, however. I'd probably say however in this case. ʼáaḥw. Are we familiar with that verb?
Yéil is like a building or making something, isn't it?
Make something, yes, to build or make something. So the raven, though, made it. A'aḥw kashxeedí kudatankahídi. This is a list of all very similar things. What are them things?
Sani is that sand?
Well, you have this sani, which means little plural of these things.
Little lakes.
Yes. Which we could translate that as ponds, but with little lakes, I like that. Little lakes. So what is this?
Lakes.
Lakes. What about that?
Salmon streams.
Yep. What about that?
yeah. Blackberry water?
Well, kashxeedí. It comes from a verb, which means to flow. There's an interesting, like getting into these sort of finer points, right? So you have, there's nadayi hin, kanadayi hin. I guess I put hin and khatini. This is how I've heard them. And hin, like, fix my space again. Hinak, nadayihin, kanadayihin, khatini, hin claim. There's kind of an order to this list. I think, maybe, I don't know. Anybody know what hinak is?
Creek.
Yeah, a creek, a very small body of running water. Nadayihin and kanadayihin are very similar, and I honestly don't fully know the difference. They are rivers. If I were to guess, I would say Kudatankahídi is a faster running river, but I don't know. Khatini means that there's fish in that river. Hinclain is the last one.
Large river.
Yes. There are three, I think there's three Hinclain and Lingít ani. But I would say there's 4 that are very important to Lingít. Can we guess what the 4 big rivers are?
ʼáaţw,
Which one?
Chilipka, Taku, Shtikeen, and Nas.
Yeah, the Nas is very important and might be the 5th because it's actually outside of Lingít country. But I do think it's how we got to the coast. So I would say the 4 major, the Heen Plain. I think these are the only ones in Lingít country. Although you get up to well, no, I don't think they're very big. Like the Nisutlan and stuff. Like even ones in the interior, like really big. Like it's so big it almost stops looking like a river at some point, I think. Taku, ʻáaḳw, Jilqat, S'eek, or S'eek, and Shtikeen, I think. But I don't. Okay. So put it all together for us, folks. Who wants to translate this sentence, please?
So Raven, however, made the lakes, the ponds, the salmon streams, and the fast-flowing rivers.
Get over. And I get a reader. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me fix this. Okay.
يا Lingít خيتي خد يا هت يبوتي يا إلهيميكا.
Sheesh. The cut ya Lingít on a ka ye ti hat. Ya hit ye wuti. Ya a hini ka. Any verbs here?
Yeti. Well,
T.
it's an adjective, isn't it?
It is. So this, let's make it Lingít on a ka ye ti. Oh, let's do green. Okay. Okay. So we've kind of got a verbal adjective. Yes, it's an attributive verb. Then we've got a verb. So the cut ya Lingít on a ka ye ti had. We've already seen a sentence just like this, right? So we should be able to sort of like figure out what this whole sentence is doing.
Fish in the world.
All the fish in the world, right? We had the cut ya Lingít on a ka ye ti heen. Now we could say the everything of the world. The cut ya Lingít on a ka ye ti douche. All the cats in the world, right? So we've got a pattern, right? So our patterns, like beginning Lingít is a lot of, it's not just memorization. I know I said that during the break, but you're memorizing chunks and like filling in these patterns. We could still do that, but also realize there is something here that we can sort of learn how to do with this ye ti ye, and then the noun. What about ya hit ye wuti? We just look, did we look at one of these things? Did we look at this thing? Ye. We didn't get to it yet on our list. I was excited. We're gonna get to it. We didn't make it to the Y's.
Jake.
Hit ye wuti. Does anybody know what this ye is?
Inside
Well, I was
the building.
inside a building and you were talking about it while you were outside of the building. All of the fish on the world were inside this house. Yéil hini ka.
This saltwater
On.
this saltwater ka.
Yes, on.
On.
Same
On.
as right here. It does go long, like we see it going long, because what's going on here is you can have kashxeedí to be resting or residing on something. You can absolutely have that. But it is very common for ka to say, I'll just gobble this up and make my vowel go long. That happens all the time. So when you have ka, you shouldn't really have kashxeedí because it should go kashxeedí. It should go long. So you could also say Yéil hit the house on the ocean. All of the fish in the world were in this house that's on the ocean. Any questions about that?
So the idea is that the whole world is covered in salt water, at least all the water in the world is salt water.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this house out on the salt water that all the fish are in.
Yeah, so this story technically starts before the story before it. That makes sense. I don't think it did. Okay, so there's a story about how Raven made the rivers, the lakes, and this, all the fresh water. So this starts before that. So a long time ago, all the water in the world was salt water. But Raven, he made fresh water. All the fish in the world were in a house on the ocean. That gets us to where we are.
That house isn't the ocean itself. There's like a house on the ocean.
It has many names. ʼáaḥw, Yanmutlahashihit, Daganahit, Kudatankahídi. All of those things are talking about this same house. It's a big house from a big story.
So is it a freshwater house in the saltwater?
It's a house floating way out on the ocean. So on the full version of this story, Raven is walking on the beach and he sees like a whole bunch of birds way out to sea. And he thinks, why are all those birds out there? So he flies out there to see it. There's a big house floating in the ocean. He looks into the smoke hole and he sees all the fish in the world are in this house. But we have we got to cut this thing down to 30 sentences. So but the idea here is to give us a manageable story. You go look in the Raven book and you could listen to people telling you the whole version, the big version of this story. But don't do it yet because we're still translating this whole thing.
I'm just
What you're
loving
saying
the
is it's a bridge.
visualization of it. I just like the idea of like there's this house out there floating on the ocean and all the fish are in it.
That is correct.
It's just a great, just imagining that. It's like an odd concept, but great.
Yeah. And then the whole idea of this is so we have these are stepping stone books. So we can deal with the full version later because we'll have all these concepts already in our mind as learners. But we can't let people translate. We can't publish an English version of these. Oh, this is a nice, fun, long one. I know somebody's just ready to read it.
I'll try. Kashxeedí kashxeedí nachki. Just has aya yak has ʼáaḥw ʼáaḥw ya diki ya kade ya kashxeedí chani chatka.
Okay. Just your jitty dana ka shot the nakhi. Just has aya yak clenk has daka u. A yachtsin. Ya de ki ya eight hini ka de. Ya katlani kuchani katka. Are there any verbs here?
Chitzin.
We're going to grab ayach and yes. There is one more.
Daga'u.
Yes. And
Looks rather verbal.
it is a verb. It's got some stuff we probably haven't seen before. So this will be our last sentence of the night, and it's a nice big sentence. Just. What is that word doing?
Only.
Yeah, just or only. Do we
Is
know?
it different from cha?
Yes. So cha kind of likes to link with other things. And it's sort of like the or the very. But that one, cha is like a true particle where it's very hard to just translate on its own. It just loves to grab something else. It's like, let's pair up and make meaning. Whereas just can just really exist on its own. Jididana is technically a verb, but it's also an adjective. Well, I guess I'm gonna get green. Anything you recognize in Jididana?
Dana.
Dana is money,
Yes.
hand.
Yes. So what might that mean? Jididana ka.
Wealthy people, wealthy person.
Yes. Wealthy person. So now we have wealthy, and specifically has a lot of money. Because you could say tléixʼ, which we saw in kashxeedí, which means to be wealthy conceptually, like have a lot of stuff. This one is specifically like money bags. What about kashxeedí?
It was getting married.
Have we heard anything similar to this? Here's a similar thing. Kashxeedí.
Is that the leader?
Yes. So hun is a verb, which means to stand. So it means stands towards the head of the people. Nak is the plural of hun. Is also plural. So kashxeedí would probably be what?
Leaders.
The leaders. Just the rich leaders. Just hasaya. How was that? How would we translate that?
Just
Those
them here.
people.
Just them. Just them all. Just them. Yak tenk.
Large boat.
Large boats.
Boats.
Hasdaqa'u. This,
They own.
yes, they have them, they own them. This daqa can appear in two different ways. it can appear as duck attached, or it could appear as duch in the same place that hus would. This has two main uses. It's something new. Tlingit is always like, here's the new one, right? And so it's like you're trying to learn how to play cards. And it's like, okay, you got 52 cards. All right. Well, actually, let's add some cards to this deck, right? So this does two things. One, it says plural non-human. The second is it says plural, but kind of individually. So for example, there are houses along the lakeside. So that would mean they are along the lake, but it's like at different points along the lake. Another example, the sea lions all jumped into the water going in sort of different directions. So you could say just the rich leaders of the people, just them, they individually had big boats. A ʼáaḳw ya deki ya kade. There's no verb there, which is really interesting. Doesn't need to have one. It's kind of implied.
It's seen as strength.
Yes, strong.
Be kind of like something that is like strength.
That would
A
be
yach.
this. Yuck. So strong, but that would be like strong like it. Like you could say, Jinkat Gaudan Yachlitzin Wayak. That boat has 10 horsepower. But this is more like correct or proper. A Yachlitzin Ya Deki Ya Eitlini Kade. We did this one.
It's toward the sky or above.
Out. Where's this house?
Out to ocean.
Way out. Way out.
Way out yonder.
They are the only ones that have big boats strong enough to go way out to sea on the ocean. So Lingít is stacking up an awful lot of concepts right here. But when you take a look at it, you say, okay, I see all the pieces there. They're stacking up and getting more complicated. And we get this complicated adjective, Ashletnik chani, delicious. Khatqa, going after. Only the rich leaders had big boats strong enough to go way out to sea to get delicious fish. Thoughts or questions? It's a lot. We did a lot. We did a lot tonight. Soak it in. Give yourself, to quote, I think we quoted Cyril George earlier, like at the beginning, maybe. He's so quotable. He said, a pat on the back never hurt anybody. Like really understand, like this is the hard work. It does get you there. It does. Like I remember one time someone got mad. They said, you're making Tlingit too difficult. You're making it difficult. And I said, Tlingit is difficult. What are you talking? Like I am not smart enough to make it more difficult than it is. I'm just trying to figure out like to piecemeal it together to figure out, and I told these speakers, I said, my kids eat real food. I want real language. Don't hold back. And they gave it. This is George Davis and Marge Dutson. They gave us such wonderful gifts to look at. And these stories are rich and wonderful. And this is just the little version. There's a bigger version, and there's a bigger version than that. So you do have some sentences. Sorry,
Huh? They are ready for you all, so yeah. Like usual, here it is. Here's your sentences for Sunday. If you have any questions, if you can't access the spreadsheet, let me know. I'll put the link once again in the chat right now. Any questions for Kootéeyaa or myself around the sentences today?
Not around sentences, but request/observation when you're posting like all of the directional locationals where we've got like 85 million slides. Could you just post the ones that have the completed tables and not where we're going one by one? Thank you.
Oh.
So like instead of having 10 slides to get to the full one, just here's one and here's the next one and here's the next one, and then it saves wear and tear on my mouse and my finger.
They are printed exactly from Kudatankahídi.
They start, every single one he's covered in class starts on page 96. They're all, you can even, nope 91, page 91, and they have the same table headers that he's used in class, and it goes through page you all have covered through most of page 101 since the beginning of this term. And the PDF, if you don't have the handy dandy PDF for some reason, is under intermediate Lingít, and it should be right here. If the link is broken or anything, you can email either one of us, and whoever is the quickest will get back to you.
Does that work?
Downloading it now.
Yeah, so the idea is like they are in these tables, and there's the tables also don't list. I think it lists all the ones that I knew of at the time, but then I separated them into the ones that I think are more common than others. So once you get to the 4th and 5th tables, you're doing ones that are a little bit more rare. But it's just good to have them so you know where to look. And then there is, I don't know if we've looked at this a whole lot. James Crippen created the Verbal Structure Handbook. And the Verbal Structure Handbook is really a short form for looking up and how to deal with verbs and a lot of other stuff in Lingít. But if you go down to, here's a whole bunch of these that we've been looking at. These are directionals, which pop up before a verb. And then here's a whole bunch of relational nouns, like all in one page. And so we've done a whole bunch of these. And so it probably includes some that might not be on this other list as well. And so here's a quick, like just having this handy so that you say, okay, I have a feeling this is one of those things. Then you could go find it on here.
One of the things that I like about when I'm doing sentences for advanced Lingít is that there's sample sentences in here. And so when I'm having issue of like, where should I put got? What am I talking about is sufficient enough? I look to the sample sentences are in here, and that helps me get correct, but then I just can learn where I went wrong in class.
And what page did you say we've been on?
91.
You started this semester at 91, and we're currently at page 101 at the top of it.
Excellent.
Okay.
Prestige.
That's what I'm here to do. Happy help.
Okay, see you folks on Tuesday. I'll be back in ʻáaḳw and ʻáni. Or was there?
One more tiny
Okay.
question. Dock. Is that like in the sense of off the fire? Can you use that for things that are not literally fire, like taking it off of an electric stove?
You would just say off
Okay.
of it. No, it has very specific, it's specifically tied to off of fire into the shadows. I do think we're going to end up using it for, what do you call it? Evaporation, which I don't think, I haven't found anyone who's talked about it. So I'll share a water cycle thing on Tuesday. It's pretty fun.
Does that include coals? Like charcoal barbecuing?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah, that would work.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it has to be an active fire, if it can be glowing coals.
That's a good question. I would probably say,
This is Lingít, it's probably different.
I would probably say ʻáaḳw. So this ʻáaḳw is a contraction of adach, so off of it, oh, from it.
Goodness gracious.
But then you gotta know the handling verb for how you pick it. Is it like a single hamburger? Is it a whole chicken? Is it a big old moose brisket?
Is it a dead thing?
At this point, yeah, if you're picking up living things off of your barbecue, then
Something has gone very wrong.
just go to jail. Just go straight to jail. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's like a crab or something. Maybe it's not as bad as I'm thinking. On that note, kashxeedí.